how do you get someone to give a shit about you or your brand or your offering when you can't even get people to care about tragedies that are happening on the evening news? Well, we're gonna talk about that in this video today. My name is Ryan Richardson, and this is Story Selling Secrets. Whether you're an entrepreneur or you're an intrapreneur in any kind of role that supports customer acquisition, direct marketing, sales, branding, then chances are you've heard that people buy with emotion and they justify with logic. And that's super great news if you know how to effectively tell stories that deploy empathy and draw on emotions from people. When you can get people who are watching news every single night and listening to some of the most horrific tragedies that are unfolding in real time and they don't shed a tear. So how could you get people to care when they don't even care about the events that are happening in their community? The reality is that the news doesn't convey anything to elicit emotion. In fact, if you look at a storytelling framework, they only use the middle part of it, because if a story has essentially three elements, which is the beginning, a middle, and the end, then the news just uses the middle. It doesn't build a backstory, it doesn't talk about the origins, it doesn't talk about the ordinary world or what happened before the event. It doesn't build on anything, it just jumps right into the middle, which is the actual event or the change that's occurring. And then it doesn't talk about the result of it or the resolution in any way, so it doesn't get to the end of it either. So if you think about the difference between the evening news and say your favorite Netflix series, Netflix, obviously all of their shows deploy these, very skillfully and artfully. And that's why we can get sucked into a series and watch Netflix for, anywhere from an hour to 6 or 7 hours straight.
The house is on fire!
Think about how upset you or your friends got when Jack from This Is Us died in a fire. That was a fictional character, and most people cared more about what happened in This Is Us than they do when there's an actual fire in real life with real victims in their neighborhood. So the lack of emotion that someone gets from watching the news isn't a result of them being like a sociopath or us having empathy fatigue. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the fact that the news just doesn't structure their information in a way that tells a story. And if they don't tell a story, it's just impossible to make people actually care. So obviously with your brand, you want to do the opposite, because you want people to care. You want people to care about you want people to care about your brand, and you want people to care about the offering. So essentially you want to be more like Netflix, and you don't want to be anything like the 6 o'clock news. It's just because the way that the information is conveyed is different. One is to actually draw out emotion. One is simply just to inform.
These are pictures that are just coming in from that bus accident we told you about.
So let's talk about the actual 3X framework, beginning, the middle, and the end. Some of the other names that it's been called are pity, fear, catharsis, suffering, struggle, overcoming, departure, initiation, return, setup, confrontation, resolution. So you can call it whatever you want. Every story has a beginning and a middle and an end. And the beginning is just where you're literally including the backstory. So this is the ordinary world. This is what's happened before the change happens. So the middle is where the change is actually happening. It's where the trials are. It's the build up to the climax. And then the end, which is the resolution, is where basically the climax is resolved. Hero achieves the goal. Those are the 3 steps in the 3X framework, but with one caveat, because people won't give a shit about your story if you don't hook them first. And the only way to really hook people effectively is by starting at the middle. So you want to kind of start at where the change is occurring or the event took place, so that you can actually keep the attention to the point of actually going through the backstory all the way through the middle and then to the end of the story. And the only way to do that is by hooking them with the middle of the story right off the bat. There's a ton of real world uses for this storytelling framework that you could super easily plug into just about every aspect of your brand. And the first one is testimonials. That's really low hanging fruit, because instead of just asking people for testimonials, it's super easy to ask them in a storytelling framework manner, where you just basically phrase the questions in a way that you're able to actually build a story around the review or around the referral. You can do that by just asking what were the problems that you were experiencing before you found our brand. That would obviously be the beginning of the story. Then you can jump to the middle of the story, which would be, hey, what's the biggest difference you've noticed since you started using our brand? That would be the middle, how the obstacles were overcome or the challenges they were facing that were in the way of their desires, how they overcame those as a direct result of working with your brand. And then the third, finally, which is the resolution of it, or the resolve, is what is life like now that you've been using our product for X amount of time? Like, what results have you seen? So it's maybe 3 extra steps. So instead of saying, hey, can you give me a quick testimonial? If you ask something very simply in a 3-step question framework, that you can build a story around, then it's gonna save them all the time of having to actually think about what to write. They can just answer the questions. You can use this in a sales situation as well. The best scripts or the best frameworks for selling one-on-one are story-based frameworks, whether you realize it or not. And think about it for a second, because what you're trying to do is you're basically identifying the character, right? So you're building the backstory. So who's the character? What do they want? What are their fears? What are their desires? Trying to achieve, like what's the goal? What's the end game? And then what's in the way of them being able to achieve it? So now you know how, with the beginning, middle, and the end, where you can identify exactly what that customer or the prospect is hoping to achieve, what their desires are, what the obstacles are, how you're gonna guide them through it, and then the call to actions, the steps that you need to give to them, and the plan so that they can actually have the desired outcome. The only difference between direct sales and direct marketing is that sales is obviously one-to-one and direct marketing is one-to-many. So one is proactive and one is reactive. So sales is reactive because you're asking questions and then you're basing your response and you're continuing the story based on the answers that they're providing you. Whereas with marketing, you don't have the luxury of hearing direct feedback from them. So you have to actually anticipate what those obstacles are, what the desires are, and how you can help them ahead of time. So the only difference is one-to-one, one-to-many, reactive, and proactive. Other than that, everything stays the same. So you are just trying to identify what the beginning is for your customer or the character, and then you're walking them through the middle of the journey, and then you're just showing them the end of the journey when they actually achieve their desired outcome. Another way to use this is in product descriptions. I just actually made a video about this where we talk about the case study where Rob Walker bought a bunch of items off of eBay for about $1 and then sold them for almost 28x. And nothing changed except for the stories that were provided in the product description. Thanks so much for watching this video. Hopefully you found value in it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Also, let me know in the comments below, what are some questions that you guys have? What are some things that you would like to see me create or talk more about? So definitely please give me some of that feedback in the comment section below. I really appreciate that. I look forward to making those videos in the future. We'll see you on the next video.